Good morning, guys. Let's sneak one more of these fallacies in for 4th of July weekend. You never know what kind of intense discussions you're going to get into while you can't leave your house. So I'm probably about to burst some bubbles, but our next fallacy is the fallacy of begging the question. Begging the question is like the word literally. You know how the millennials literally cannot use the word literally correct? They use I was literally gonna die when I heard the news. No, I think you're confusing literal and figurative. It's the same thing with begging the question. Most of the time when you hear somebody say, well, that begs the question, da, 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 what they're really saying is that raises the question. But the phrase begging the question is a synonym for circular reasoning. So when you accuse somebody of the begging the question fallacy, it means they're assuming what they're supposed to be showing. Here's an example. It's something that you hear people say against Christians quite a bit. So they'll say, how do you know the Bible's true? And then you'll say, oh, well, it says so right there. And you point at the Bible. And that would be an example of begging the question. You're assuming what you're supposed to be showing them. Circular reasoning. You're reasoning in a circle. The Bible's true because the Bible's true. Now, we're going to talk about the Bible being true and how I don't think that that's as cut and dry a case of circular reasoning as has been suggested. Yet, for our purposes, it serves as a good example. Here's another more sophisticated example. Noted this when I was reading Bart Ehrman's book, How Jesus Became God. Now, this book seeks to show that Jesus never intended anybody to think that he was the Son of God. It was just a case of misunderstanding, mistaken identity. But in making his case, he says, the Apostle Paul never said that Jesus was God. Now, if you're a Bible student, you're probably thinking, well, wait a second. That's not true. And then you're probably thinking about Colossians. But guess what? Bart Ehrman rejects the book of Colossians. He says it couldn't have been written by Paul. Well, why couldn't it have been written by Paul? Because it says Jesus is God. This is a perfect example of circular reasoning. And it's done by the, quote, smartest Bible critic among us in this generation. You're going to see this quite a bit. Usually it comes in this form. Instead of offering reasons for one's positions, they simply restate their position. And they get away with it because they use, highfalutin language, flowery language. It occurs to me just in the moment that I remember the first time that I was tasked with writing a term paper, where you have to make a statement and defend it. Those papers that you wrote back in Comp 1, Comp 2, those were arguments that you were making. But I remember struggling with that because I would have, okay, here's my opinion, and then I didn't get that the other paragraphs were supposed to offer evidence for my position. So I would just kind of keep finding new ways to restate my opinion. But that doesn't do. And that's circular reasoning. So there you have it, guys. The fallacy of begging the question. And if you don't remember anything else about this video, you'll probably remember that most of the time people say begging the question, they're saying it literally wrong.